på How to Identify Clavarias med Ivona Kautmanova, som har jobbet mye med rødlystarbeid I Slovakia. Vær så god.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I apologize that I don't speak Norwegian, so I will try my English as good as I can. My talk will be about Clavarias, especially of the genus Clavaria, which I am focused on. And most of you know that these are those small things growing in the grass, looking like corals or fingers or something like that. And as they lack typical macro characters like lamellae or pores or stem or cap or ring or something else, their taxonomy is very difficult. And this talk is about how to deal with them if you're trying to identify them as much as possible. The taxonomy of Clavariaceae was difficult and still is difficult. Some improvements or some promises could be made from this two-volume book published, 2 years ago in Italy. But as with many of Italian books, there's lots of information and sometimes a bit not so precise, not so reliable. So you have to be a bit careful, but still there are great books if you want to work with clavarioid fungi. Though they treat mostly Italian species, but as you can see, many of such species can be found throughout Europe. So this is what the genus Clavaria in Europe looks like these days, maybe. The genus Clavaria is divided to two subgenera, Clavaria and Holocorine. They are distinguished by the presence or absence these so-called loop-like clamps at the base of basidia. They are very, very typical. If you find at least one such basidium, you're sure that you're in the subgenus Holocorine. The problem is that these clamped basidia, they do not occur very frequently. Maybe 1 in 100 could be. If you find one in your preparation, you're a lucky guy, and you can proceed. Especially if you're working with dried specimens, you have to be very, very careful because the dried basidia, they usually break in this part, so you don't see the clamps. That's very important when you work with Clavarias, to work with the fresh specimens. Basically, Clavarias, these colors are typically have the white, gray or brown color, pink, and yellow. And the first way how to treat Clavarias is you have to make notes or remarks on macro characters. And the most important macro characters in Clavarias is color. Very important color, fresh. Color of the fresh specimens is very important because, as you can see on the picture, most of the dried specimens look like this. And if there's no note in the preparation, in the specimen, you couldn't know if the specimen was originally white or yellow or pink. The other macro character is the basal part, the so-called stipe, which is sometimes delimited, sometimes not. And again, you could not see that on dried specimens. The texture of flesh, if the fungus is fragile or elastic, and you can do it like this. And if it grows solitary or in clumps, that's not so important, but it's good to know. And then there are microcharacters. Spores, not so important the size of spores. The spores, those of one who's working with wax caps, you know that the spores of one specimen could be of various shapes and sizes, and it's the same with Clavarias. But there are very few species you can distinguish based on the size of the spores. But it is important to know whether the spores are thin-walled or thick-walled, and if they have ornamentation. Ornamentation in Clavarias is something very special. It does not resemble ornamentation of other spores like in Russulas or Cortinarius is, you can see is on that one spore, on these two examples, that it looks like the spore tries to germinate on several sites. And, but it's not germination, it's ornamentation. And again, some spores of the same specimens of the same slide could be ornamented, not all. Very, very rare is that many spores are ornamented. You find many, many ornamented spores. Usually, as these clamps, you find 1 or 2 or 3 well-ornamented spores. Again, if you find at least one ornamented spore, you know that you're in the subgenus Holocorine. Clavaria without clamps never has ornamented spores. Then you try to look the basidia if they are with this clamp. It looks like this. And the structure of hyphae, if they are inflated and thick, or thin and narrow. Inflated hyphae means that when fresh, the fungus was rather fragile. That makes sense because this inflated hyphae, they broke easily, and so it means fragile fungus. And let's start. So these were the basic things you have to note when treating clavarias. And we will start according to colors. So let's start with the black ones. These are the most typical representatives. And let's start with the two very conspicuous species, Clavaria asperulospora and Clavaria atrofusca. I have to be honest that Clavaria asperulospora I haven't seen in my life fresh. It's quite rare. And all of those black species which resembling some trichoglossum or something like that. Usually my friend Viktor Kučera, who's doing trichoglossums and geoglossaceous fungi, he's the one who's finding these Clavaria atrofusca most frequently. These two species can be separated based on the spore shape. As you can see, asperulospora has spore rounded, and atrofusca spores are amygdaloid, let's say, or ellipsoid. These are the only two species of Clavaria which have very thick-walled and densely ornamented spores. It's the different kind of this ornamentation you can see in other Clavaria species. Well, so if you find something which you think is geoglossum, but you're not very sure, better take that this is not ascomycete like geoglossum, this is basidiomycete, and in the slide you can see, on the microscope, you will very, very quickly know that you have something rare and interesting. Then there is one small, the most common of the brown ones is so-called Clavaria pullei, or there's the other name, Clavaria atroumbrina. These were, sometimes they are treated like two species, but they are differing only in the spore shape. Clavaria pullei is more shorter, and atroumbrina should have spore more longer. But this is not a good taxonomical character, and even DNA does not support the idea of this being two species. Maybe that in North America there is this other species, atroumbrina, but probably needs more sequences. But in Europe, we're talking about Clavaria pullei, which is very small. Sometimes, very rarely, it is up to 3 centimeters. It's elastic, it's not fragile. It's of the subgenus Clavaria without clamped basidia, and spores are thin-walled and ellipsoid. If you find this, you will see in future that this spore shape and size, most of the Clavaria has the same spore size and shape. So without other characters, you're not able to work only with the spore size and shape. And then there is this strange collection, this particular collection called Clavaria fusco. I gave it name Clavaria fusco ferruginea, was collected some 10-15 years ago by Per Marstad at Riksetra in Norway, here. And you can see it's fragile. It was big in clamps and it's fragile, so it's no chance poulet. It looks like poulet, but it's big and in clamps, and it's fragile. And there was some suspicions that could be Fusco ferruginea, American species, but we were not able to get any fresh collections, any recent collections good, suitable for sequencing from America. So we are still using this name for this single collection from Europe. Yeah. So if you find, if you're working in grasslands and if you find something which is this light brown color and is fragile, and it's not fumosa, it's much darker than fumosa and much more elastic than fumosa, please take the sample, take the specimens, and we will see. We'll try to sequence it. Maybe, meanwhile, somebody in America will find some fresh collections, because the most recent collections are from 1960s by Patterson, and we were not able to sequence them very good. So, and the last of the these black ones is Clavaria grelletti. You may know it. It's when it's young and fresh, it's completely black, resembling this Atrofusca. But older or mature specimens has this ash gray color, which is very typical for them. They are elastic, and they have very, very special shapes of the spores. The spores are big, up to 10 micrometer, and rounded, and look like small balloons under microscope. Only 3 Clavaria species has this type of spores. One is this black, one is white, and one is pink. I will show you them. So this spore shape is rather typical. It's of the subgenus Holocorines, so the basidia are clamped. This species, my experience is that this species grows almost exclusively solitary. If you find 2 or 3, like on that picture, it's something unusual. Usually you find only 1 in whole meadow and no other in distance. So that was black. They are easy. Black Clavarias are easy. Yeah. And then there are yellow ones, which are again not so difficult if you know the rules. First, you have to be sure that you did not find some Clavulinopsis. Yeah, you know Clavulinopsis. Clavulinopsis, there are 4 species: Helvola, Luteolba, Leticolor, and Fusiformis, the most common. And they have this bright yellow color, and they are one of the most common clavarioid fungi you can find on grasslands. They grow in any habitat from Arctic to swamps, in grazed meadows, in not so good meadows, not so good quality meadows, and they are typical by that when they are dry, they retain this bright yellow color, except of Luteo alba. You can see, I was wondering why this orange species is called Luteo alba, means white, whitish yellow, but when you dry it, the dried specimens are really pale. So that's the reason. But it's when fresh, it differs from the 3 others that it's orange, really orange thing. So if you're sure that you do not have Clavulinopsis, then you can proceed. First of these is Clavaria amoenoides, which I don't know how it's in Norway, but in Slovakia it is rather rare species. I've collected it maybe on 2 or 3 occasions. But here you have much more good grasslands. Maybe it's more common. This one can be distinguished from other yellow species by that by its structure, it's fragile, but at the same time, it's soft. If you try to take it from the grass, it breaks to parts, but not like fragilis or fumosa, but like something which is over-ripen or maybe even a bit rotten. It breaks to the parts. And this banana yellow color is very, very typical. This is a big species, could be this big, up to 10 centimeters maybe. Rather conspicuous, and the shape of the spores is very typical. They are long. The Q, this ratio depth, width and length is almost 2. So spores are never ornamented, as is it from the Clavaria group. So this is Amoenoides. And then there is the other species, maybe you know it under the name Clavaria straminea, which was, now we use the older names, which is valid Clavaria flavipes. This one, probably the most of all, resembles this Clavulinopsis in this yellow color, bright yellow color, but when it dries, it fades to the beige color. And older specimens has this whitish color. And several years ago, this Flavostellifera has been separated from the Flavipes based on the spore shape. But unless the spore shape, they are very, very difficult to distinguish these two species. Based on the macro characters, you have to microscope them, but then it's easy. Straminea or Flavipes has all spores the same shape, same size, like coins. They are globular and rounded, and they are very, very typical when you're looking at the microscope. And the Flavostellifera has more ellipsoid spores, and often they are ornamented. In Clavaria flavipes, I never seen ornamentation of the spores. It's strange, because it's of the subgenus Holocorine. So this is the second yellow. So there are two, but this is the second yellow. And then there is Clavaria argillacea. It was mentioned in this presentation about alpine fungi. This is the only Clavaria we know that is mycorrhizal with ericoid plants like vaccinium, blueberries, cranberries, and the other things, and erica. Its twin species is Clavaria sphagnicola, which is very, very similar, but it grows in peat bogs. And this sphagnicola, argillacea grows in coasts, in sands, in very, very many habitats, from coasts to alpine regions. You can find it everywhere. But sphagnicola is limited to sphagnum peat bogs. And as you can see on that picture, this was found in Steinkjer in Norway, and the carpophores grew directly of the moss. It seems like there was some relationship with the moss. This year we were in Vestland, in Norway, and we again found this species. What was the locality? Near Stord, yeah. And again, this was growing like this from mosses in very, very wet peat bog, coastal peat bog, and with mosses. They differ slightly in the size of spores, but they can be distinguished based on DNA. Based on DNA, they are completely different species, well delimited, but also by ecology, they can be tell apart. So that was the all yellow. Again, it was not so difficult. Now we're heading to pink. Once taxonomists start to work with a certain group, which was easy, it's not easy anymore. if a good specialist will work. This is a good picture because this is the collection from one meadow from some 10 years ago. My friend collected this. At that time, we called all these Clavaria incarnata. There was no other name for the pink Clavarias except Rosea, which is Rosea. Rosea is Clavaria subgenus. This is Holocorine subgenus. Since then, things changed a bit because I started to work with the pink Clavarias, and still I'm afraid I'm not in the middle of my trials. Let's start with Clavaria rosea. You may know it from Norway because it's not so rare. It's very, very rare in, I think in continental, maybe Central Europe. Here, it can be found in good meadows. It's very, very typical. I call it bright pink, like Barbie pink. No other Clavaria has this color. It's pink as pink can be. And it's a rather big species, could be big. Though from Slovakia we have several collections which are very small, but still I have suspicions that there could be at least 2 species in this one species, clampless, hidden, but nobody did work on this hypothesis. Clavaria roseo-violacea is that pink species I've told you that has these big balloon shaped spores like greleti, sometimes often ornamented. So if you find something dark pink and you think it's rosea, always check the spores because as you can see, rosea has this shape of spores, yes? This long ellipsoid, cylindrical almost. And if you find these spore shapes, you have Clavaria roseo-violacea. It's a funny thing because it has been described by Peterson from New Zealand, and since 1960s, it has not been recorded anywhere else on the Earth. And when I worked with these pink Clavarias, I found one collection from, I guess, Czech Republic. It was with these rounded spores, and it's roseo-violacea, New Zealand species here in Central Europe. Yeah, and it was. And now when we recognize this species, it has been found in several countries, I guess in Norway too. It's not so rare as it seems. So any dark pink Clavaria, if you find, it's worth taking sample and it's worth taking and checking spores. If you see the spores are often ornamented, so it means it's of the Holocorine subgenus. Yeah, and now we're with Clavaria incarnata. It's my nightmare, to be honest, because I'm dealing with Clavaria incarnata maybe for 10 years now, and still I don't know what Clavaria incarnata in fact is, because it has been described by a Russian mycologist Weinmann, who's been doing in St. Petersburg, he's been botanist and gardener in the Royal Palace, and he found incarnata there, some small pink Clavaria, which he called incarnata, but the type description is like, I found some small, 2-3 centimeters, it's pink, that's all, growing in the grass. And the type specimen disappeared, it's not available. So we have to decide what pink Clavaria shall we call incarnata in future, and that's not so easy, as you will see. It's what we know, it's of the Holocorine group, it's elastic, and that's all. And let's check how many pink Clavarias of this incarnata group we have in fact. First is Clavaria mesapica, has been described, I think, 2010 from Italy, but it is probably the most common of the pink Clavarias. It's a big species, has a salmon pinkish color, very typical, and the spore shape, you can see, it's very, very typical. They are like cubical or not elliptic, but you can see that not all, but very many spores, it's this geometric, let's say, shape, rectangular. Spores are often ornamented, and the stipe is very, very well defined. And there you come to this character that you have to check the color of the fresh collections, because this one is fading to this beige color. And if you know that it was originally pink, then you know that it's one of those which fading with drying. To be things more complicated, it has also the white form. So if you find something like that, no, I don't think I or anybody else on the earth could, without the DNA, could tell that this is Clavaria mesapicaforma alborosea. You would say that it's something, I don't know, some white Clavaria. Another incarnata species we've described with eBay several years ago, which could be, let's say, distinguished by other methods than molecular, is that species we call Parvispora. And the spores are slightly smaller than the other spores of these pink Clavarias. Usually spores are, I don't know, 5 to 7 micro, and these are 3 to 4, 3 to 5. But you have to have some experience. This also has been collected in Norway. The best collection we've got is from Oslo in, I don't know, this Königsgarden or something like that, the locality. I don't know it by heart in Norwegian. But it has been collected here in Oslo city. One of the characters worth noticing is that the stipe is kind of yellowish, but this is not always visible. Depends if the specimens are soaked by water or dry or not. And the question is, what is incarnata? Still is open. I will show you later some newly described Italian species and undescribed species. There's lots of things that have this pink color. So we have to decide now which of them will become Clavaria incarnata sensu stricto. We will do the sequence, or we will choose the sequence, and then the things will be maybe a little less complicated. When talking about pink Clavarias, one cannot omit Clavaria zollingeri. I guess all of us, you know what Clavaria zollingeri looks like. And it has been one of those species which were easy to recognize, easy to describe, easy to work with them. But very recently, the mycologists worldwide had suspicions that maybe it's not only one species, yeah? That there could be several species of Clavaria zollingeri hidden in that one species. And just this last year, there were email conversation between Jens Petersen, Thomas Lessow, Ibai Olariaga, and me, that they found something which was strange, and they sequenced it, and it's different from zollingeri. They got it provisional name Clavaria pseudo-zollingeri. And when there was this evidence that probably something else exists within zollingeri, I took all my collections of zollingeri from my herbarium, and we've asked colleagues in the lab to sequence them. And just last week, I got the sequences, and it looked like this. As you can see, there are two big groups of zollingeri, one here and one here. These are, all of them were found in Slovakia, but these go along with specimens from Switzerland. And these go along with the specimens from Norway, Finland, and Northern Europe. And then there are some Chinese collections, some American collections, suggesting that in China or in America, North America, something different is growing. And then there is this strange clade of things growing worldwide in Canada, Russia, Central Europe, Norway. But take this as very, very provisional. As I told you, this is from the last week, and I didn't do microscopy based on these molecular results, and it's not so easy as it seems, because you see here in this Norway, Finland is one Florida species, and here is some strange Chinese species out of the other Chinese species. So there will be a lot of work. Even Clavaria zollingeri is not easy now. I'm not very happy about that. And and the worst thing is that many years ago, some 15 years ago, when Ibai Olariaga, in his dissertation, he studied the type specimen of Clavaria zollingeri, he found out that the type is, in fact, not Clavaria at all. It's some Clavulina, described from Java, from tropics. So now we have to decide what is the name for the thing we call Clavaria zollingeri in Europe. So the typification is needed to be done, and lots of work is needed to be done. But for you, I think it's just good to be aware that there are maybe at least 2 European good species of Clavaria zollingeri. And nightmare of all clavariologists are white Clavarias. I must say that I did not dare to go to the taxonomy of white Clavarias, because now I'm trying to solve these pink ones, and the white ones, it's so complicated, and it's complicated by the fact that there are so many old historical names for white things. Candida, I don't know, Alboides, Albida, very, very many. But the time is running slow, so just quickly. Clavaria fragilis, you know probably Clavaria fragilis, a very brittle, very, very fragile species growing in grass. Maybe, and I'm almost sure that there are 2 species which could be recognized by that, the so-called vermicularis. It has been used, this name, but they were synonymized, but I think that was a mistake, my mistake. We've synonymized them many years ago, but that was not true, to my opinion. This vermicularis is something which is not so fragile as true fragilis, and I don't know, but I've noticed that all the drying specimens has a smell like rotten cabbage, but this may not be a taxonomical character, but just some bacteria or what. Clavaria fumosa, again, you know, all of you know fumosa. This is grayish one, should be maybe included in those brown and grayish group, but it's so in shape, except in everything except color, it's so close to fragilis that I put it here. And then there is this one small thing, Clavaria griseo-brunea, which has been described by Ibai and still is known from the only one Spanish collection, from type locality. It grows in dense ferns growth. So if you find something with reddish type growing in ferns, could be this griseo-brunea species. Very, very small. Then there is Clavaria acuta and falcata, which are probably, again, 2 species. And the most common of the small white thing you can find in grass anywhere. They're usually very small, again, growing only one here and one there. Never you will find a big collection of these. And they are with clamped basidia, spores ellipsoid. So everything which is not fragilis is acuta falcata if it is small. And then there is Clavaria tenuipes. Again, this is a species where there were big disputes what Clavaria tenuipes in fact is, and nobody knows what Clavaria tenuipes is. But you can find very often Clavaria species which are inflated, like big, I don't know. And with ornamented spores, they are fragile. They are not fragile. They are elastic, and usually they are like Isabelle white or grayish, like dirty white color. For now, we call them tenuipes. No better name for them. And now I would like to show you several recently described species from this Italian book and the works of these Italian mycologists, which most of them are distinguishable only by DNA. But just for your information that so many pink Clavarias exist. Clavaria salentina, which is orange. Clavaria tirhenica. I have confirmed this tirhenica from Slovakia by DNA. So it could easily be in Norway too. It has... It's quite similar to this Mesapica I showed you, the first one, and it could be delimited only by DNA, but maybe in some environmental studies or so you can find the sequence of this species. Appendiculata, which is yellowish, but still resembling maybe true incarnata. Clavaria pseudo-incarnata described, but I'm afraid that they described pseudo-incarnata without knowing our Parvispora species I showed you first, but could be or could be not. So again, small pink thing, Clavaria apulica, very strange. These I haven't seen, I just know them from literature. Clavaria pisana. All of them are well delimited by DNA, but otherwise very, very difficult to recognize. Calabrica, this is interesting. This looks like Zollingeri, only it is brownish color. And it's well delimited by DNA, so it is not a brown variety of Zollingeri. It goes in one clade with Clavaria fumosa on DNA. But if you find something like this, I will show you something at the very end of the presentation. And still there are my undescribed species which were not treated by the Italian. One Norwegian collection, something, this is from Riksetra again, something with slightly bigger spores, something with many ornamented spores, and something delimited only by DNA. So at least these 4 species are waiting for their description. And this is something Jorn Bjarne found last year, 2022, in Bomle. Nobody knows what's that. It's Clavaria. We've sequenced it, but we know it only from this single collection. They look like they are fully matured, not young specimens, waiting for another collections of something like this. And this is very strange. This is again American species, Clavaria rubicundula, which we don't have a sequence of the type specimen, no recent collection from American continent of this species. But in GeneBank there has been uploaded one sequenced named CF rubicundula, from 81 collected and described by taxonomist Petersen. And there is, I've got Clavaria specimens from Oslo Herbarium for revision, and we've sequenced, yes, this is almost the very last, and we've sequenced one of this collection from Bergegarde from More og Romsdal from 2005, and this is the same as this Petersen's. But I haven't seen any of these collections fresh. So again, if you see something like this, please collect it and please take it to Oslo or some other herbarium and we will see. And conclusions, what can you do when you are so brave and you will start to work with Clavarias at field? The first and most important, make notes on the color. It's good to use color charts because as you could see on these pink Clavarias, it's a very difference. If you say that it was pink, You don't know it was violet pink or salmon pink, and that's a great difference, really. Make a note on the structure of the flesh, of the stipe, and of the smell. At home, try to microscope if you're microscoping the fresh samples, and try to find clumps, at least one. Try to find ornamented spores, at least one. Check and make the notes of the color change when drying. You can try some chemical reactions with these chemicals, but they are not very good. Sometimes the reaction evolves very slow, sometimes immediately, sometimes it's different in young specimens and old specimens. They react differently to these chemicals, so it's not, I don't think it's a good character. And at herbarium, microscope spore clumps and trauma, check chemical reaction, and read the notes of the author of the collector. That's the most important. And this is the last slide. This was found in Slovakia. It's not the only record. You would say that it's Clavaria calabrica growing along with Zollingeri, but probably this is brownish Zollingeri. Have you seen anything like that in Zollingeri when found it? My student found it, I don't think, twice or 3 times maybe. Now I've got, last week I've got the specimen for sequencing, so we will see, but I'm sure this is Zollingeri, but just a strange color variation maybe. And I would like to thank my friends for the pictures and you for your patience and attention.
Thank you very much. Very interesting.